This is Sir Charles Quinn, and you're with the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
Yeah, man, this is a show a long time in the making.
From the North Bay.
You know it. We are lucky enough to do this show courtesy of Gary at the Amp Shop and Bass Exchange that was on Ventura for a long time.
Man.
And now on Lankershim in North Hollywood.
NoHo.
Right under the NoHo sign.
Right under the NoHo sign. Can't miss
So
it.
come see Gary at the Bass Exchange. And we have yet another bass player from Vallejo, California.
Man, where's that place at?
You know what? You've been out of there for a little while.
I've been out of there since high school.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And they must have only sold fat strings in that town.
Well,
No, we had guitar players in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good grief. Not
Yeah.
according to our show.
I broke a
That's
lot.
true.
I broke a
True.
lot of strings.
We've had a lot of bass players on the show.
Yeah, and I know a lot of bass players in Vallejo. Quite a few, man. I mean, from a lot of the past interviews that I heard, the Vallejo artists, if you knew about the music scene in Vallejo, a lot of talented people, man. A lot of talented people. I grew up with this bridge over my head, man, of all this knowledge of music from different eras, man. And it came from, I mean, the rap got started after I left.
Yeah.
But I had a cousin that played bass, Al Killingsworth. He was 5 years older than me. Then I had another cousin, Clancy Easterling, who was 5 years older than Al. And we would all hang together.
Right.
Al came from the Graham era of playing. Clancy was more of the Bootsy Collins era of playing. So I had these older cats hollering at me going, man, you do this, blah, blah, do that. And they would talk amongst each other. And I would just sit there and cry going, I'm not worthy. Just a tremendous amount of knowledge, man. But that was Vallejo.
I knew Al from back in the day because I worked at Ken Ilosorio's Pro Drum Shop.
Okay.
And he used to come in there, man, and he had been playing in the Flashback Band and a lot of things. But usually what he would do is he would just walk in and we would chop it up for a second and he would look around and then he'd pull a bass off the wall. And I always paid attention to what bass he selected because he never took the most expensive bass down off the wall.
No. Yeah, Al's a player, man. He doesn't rely on the instrument. He relies on his technique.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And he pulls everything that instrument has to offer out of it.
And it's funny because I was like the original bass player in Flashback.
Okay.
Yeah, so I played with Ben and, and all the older cats. Franz's dad.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But that's when I met people like Judy Padilla and just so many other people. Vincent.
Yeah.
I was playing with Vincent Herring for a long time. And I was playing with Vincent Herring in junior high school, and Al was, coaching me then. Vince, right now, he's playing with Mingus Big Band. He has like 11 solo albums out, and
wow.
He left Vallejo, which is a guy that you have to get because this guy left Vallejo, moved to New York, and never came back.
He did it.
Well, he came back one time, and that's the headline of the Vallejo Jazz Festival at the waterfront.
Oh, I bet.
Where he lived right across the street from.
Right.
30 years previous. And it's
Yeah.
like, now I'm here in this different capacity, man.
I'll say.
Yeah, what's happening, man? What brings you guys to L.A.?
Man, you know what brings us to L.A., man? Charles Quinn.
This
is what brings us to L.A. You want to say we're here for another reason, but really, we've been waiting to do this for a while, man, because first of all, our episode number 1 featured James Early.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is that now you are the bass player for O'Brien, and you've had a long and storied career. You've done a lot. You've played for a lot of people. You've made a lot of people happy. You've made a lot of people booty shake. I would say so.
And got some hips
I'm glad it's a radio station. You couldn't see what I was doing.
But we came down here a number of weeks ago, and we did a show with another Vallejo bass player named Philip Decker.
My man.
And the first thing that he said when he got comfortable in the show, he was, at first he said, well, I don't know why you guys are having me on. Because I don't have anything to say. And then, you heard his show was like an hour and 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
We had plenty to say.
Yeah.
But he said, I don't know what I have to say.
Dude.
We got going. As soon as we got going and he got comfortable, he said, you know who you need to have on this show? Charles Quinn. And I said, yes. We will have Charles Quinn on this show. I will drive down here just to get Charles on the show and then turn around and go home. But luckily, we got a couple other shows that we're doing while we're down here. But you know, man, we've been chasing you for a while.
Oh, not me, man. Because you know what? I had no
idea.
idea that you were even doing this. I mean, because had I known, I would have sought you out.
Okay.
There's no need to
This is
looking
what
for
Charles
me,
says,
man.
but you know what? Hey,
Just don't need
you
to
know
look
what
for
you
me.
can do on Facebook? You can go look in the messenger section and go all the way back to when I said, hey, Charles, we just had Phil on the show. He said you need to come on the show. But here's the thing. This goes back further than you know, because I'm a few years younger than you. And when I was a young cat in Vallejo, our entire generation of musicians knew that if you wanted to hear bad, all you had to do was listen to Charles Quinn. Now, you make a face like that's foreign to you, but you left a long shadow in Vallejo. And one of the reasons I'm aware of that shadow is because I grew up around the corner from Michael Cologne. And you did a lot of playing in that garage and that little studio setup that he built.
Yeah, with that Tama Imperial Star with the blue hydraulic oil skin heads.
That's right.
Man, Mike. I mean, the first time I heard Mike Cologne play the drums was pretty much the first time I could say I actually heard a drummer. That was a technician.
Yes.
All right. And Mike was one of those kind of people. He's that kind of person. He's very technical in his drum playing.
Yeah.
I didn't. It was foreign to me to see somebody who had that sort of. I mean, Mike would do things like take the mic for the bass drum and move it in different locations to get different sounds. He would put it in the bass. He would move it 2 inches out of the bass. He'd move and then he'll do a whole recording and then move it up a little bit just to get. I mean, I had seen that sort of technicality in any sort of musician. And then, of course, I was in junior high school, but it was just part of that learning curve.
Right.
But Mike, that's one of the things that I got from Mike Cologne, man. But as far as his friendship is concerned, till this very day, man, Mike,
he's a beautiful dude. I got to give him a shout out too. We haven't given him proper credit because about a half an hour into this show, you will hear our middle of the show bumper, and that was written by Mike Cologne.
Get out of here.
So yeah, man. Not only that, years ago, Mike Cologne got, he's a drummer's drummer. And when you're a gigging drummer and working as much as he always has, you get out there and you find yourself in situations. And one of the situations that he would find himself in was you'd be playing a wedding or something and the tap on the beer keg would break. And so one of the things he always kept in his trap case was a spare beer tap.
That's a smart man.
And I remember seeing it and thinking along the same lines as, Mike, why do you have this? And he was like, because one day I'm going to be the hero of the party. And the beer tap is going to break, but I'm going to have an extra one. And I'll save the day.
Typical Mike Cologne thinking.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the next step to that thinking was, hey, man, I answered this ad in Rolling Stone magazine, and I became an ordained minister. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, because one of these days we're going to be playing a wedding, and the minister is going to have a flat tire. And he's going to be calling up, and the wedding starts at 2, and it's 2:05, and the minister's going to be like, I'm in Lodi, and I got it flat.
Give the drummer some.
Right. So I said, you know what, Mike? You're going to put that certificate to use. And he did 21 years ago, marry me and my wife, Christy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then,
now that's
shortly
shocking.
after performing the ceremony, you know what he did? He got on the drums and got funky. And
The man.
guest after guest after guest who didn't, typically from her side of the family would come up to me and go, who is that pastor? I want to go to his church. And I would say, that is Michael Cologne. We call him Daddy C. He is the Reverend of the First Church of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Man, yeah. We played a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire in his current basement. And it's spotted at his parents' pad for a while, man. I owe a whole lot to Mike. I've met quite a few folks through Mike. But like I said, man, those guys back then, man, Phil and Adam Molinar and Apple and all those guys, and dude, there
was a generation of musician in Vallejo, man, that
that's
really
just at
laid
one
the
school.
foundation at one school.
That was just at
That's
one
true.
school. And I mean, I didn't even mention the fact
It was a good
that
school. It was a good school.
The year behind me, my cousin Earl Stevens was in the class the year behind me.
That's
he
right.
went on
He was
to
class
become
of 85.
he went on to become E40.
E40. And
my other
Donnell was
cousin,
in that class.
Donnell
Stevens,
yeah.
D-Shot.
And my cousin Marcellus McCarver, who lived right around the corner from us because we all grew up in the hills. This is hillside
Known as
for
Sally
life.
Cell.
Yeah. So there was a lot of talent there, man. And even to this very day, I don't know what the music scene's like in Vallejo. My whole thing is, man, when we as a society we gave music the back seat, and
Yeah, it's terrible.
and
Music
we're all
education
suffering.
first.
Yeah, yeah.
And music in general had to take a back seat, and artistic endeavors
went out the window.
right out the window. And you know, the thing that people don't
source.
realize is that when you do that, you affect spatial awareness in a society. And when you affect something like spatial awareness, it trails off into fewer people being confident in the sciences
Well, even the
and
spatial,
less exploration.
even that spatial separation, you also had this gap in life where we're not going to have any more Princes, we're not going to have any more Luther Vandrosses, we're not going to have any more Stevie Wonders,
Yeah.
because there's this whole gap where music took this shift, and now these people who we're calling legends, and they're passing on, we don't have anybody to replace
There's no
them with.
backfill.
Exactly.
Because we have no incubator.
Exactly. Yeah, because we didn't do what we needed to do as a society, man. And I mean, I've been playing all my life.
Yeah.
I'm a piano player. I've been playing the piano since I was 4.
That blows my mind.
I mean,
Because in Vallejo, you are famous for the bass.
but then again, you go to these churches, and
Yeah.
I was the organist at a lot of the churches in Vallejo as well.
Right.
It's been my whole life, and to see that missing, it's painful to a certain extent, man. Because I go there looking for it, and it's not there, and then you got the same old thing. And then the scene in the Bay Area for me is funny, because Phil said something that really struck a chord with me when he was talking about how he moved to L.A. and he moved, from the Bay Area because the music scene in the Bay Area was there, but it wasn't as fluid as it is here in Los Angeles.
So you're
And-
talking about Phil when his episode of our show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah. This
right.
this is the major leagues.
Right.
This is where the stuff happens. You want to get called up, you got to call yourself down here.
Definitely, and if that's what you want to do, if this is what you want to do,
Yeah.
this is the place to do it. But when he said that, and it's something that I've always felt, because even when I go back to the Bay Area now, which is not that often, the music scene is still there. I mean, I still know a lot of the musicians that are in the Bay Area. The majority of them, as a matter of fact, I played the majority of the venues there. I did both Yoshis with Kimberly Jackson, excellent flute player. And she had a monster band. We had a good friend of mine, Carl the Animal Crowder on drums, Bad Cat. God, Jimmy McKinney was on keys. Jimmy's with Graham now. And Cliff Gamble was on keys. And, Mark Daniels was on guitar. He's done some stints with Bobby Womack and stuff. And that was her Yoshi show, Yoshi San Francisco show. And our Yoshi's Oakland show, we had Victoria Theodore. She was our last keyboard player. And, she's with Beyonce now. She's toured with Stevie for the last 10, 15 years. She was on the last Arsenio Hall show. Brian Brazil played drums on one of those shows. He's with Graham now.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he's not with Graham. He actually left Graham not too long ago. He's touring with Dr. John now.
Huh.
Oh,
So
Wow.
he went from one legend to another.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I just ran into him the last NAMM show, and we hooked it for a little bit. So the Bay Area scene is there, and the talent is there.
It's just not nurtured like it used to be.
Yeah, that, and it didn't have any place to go. I mean, you get to a certain point at your growing level, and then, see, I've already done Yoshi's. Okay, I've done the Oakland Coliseum.
What now?
But next, but then when you get to LA, it's like that's all in a day's work.
Yeah. There's
That's
all kinds
a
of
typical
venues down
Tuesday.
here, and the road starts here.
That's a typical Tuesday.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's what I found out. I've only been, like I said, I was born here. I was, so LA is home for me. But I did grow up in the Bay Area, so my funk is definitely Oakland.
Yeah.
But man, when I came back home, it was like one of those things. I've been here for going on 5 years now, and it's been every day that I've been here has been a learning experience. But the reason why I had to come down here is because when I started working with O'Brien, we originally started this project in the Bay Area. We started in Pinole. A good friend of mine, a guy that I started playing with, a guitar player, his name was Romerico Giroso. I met him through a bass player, Ricky Hill, that passed a few years ago, prominent Vallejo bass player.
Yeah. Rest well, Ricky Hill.
Yeah, man. And Romy gave me a call one day, man, and he said, "Hey, man, I got a gig for you, man. You want to play your Choices in Benicia?"
Oh, yes. Well, yes, I do.
Choices in Benicia.
Because his group.
Listen, we could talk about choices however we want because it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. Well, Because those memories have to go.
You know, they had live music at Choices in Benicia, and that was the one place in Benicia where the funk could happen.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
also
you
the
could get
place
funky
where,
down there.
like, you know, before there were cougars, that's where the cougars went. Like
That's right.
The not so happy married or
Yeah.
Or
formerly married.
recently unmarried.
yes.
Take your pick.
How do
Older
I get-
ladies.
How do I
D,
get
all of
back
the
in the
above.
game?
That was the place where the recently divorced could go and maybe indulge their proclivities and their curiosities about brothers who played the bass.
Well, I just played the bass. I don't know anything about that. I wasn't. I just,
All you did was play the
I
bass.
just plugged up. Where's my money? It's time to go. But Choices, that club is where I got. It's funny because I got my start with O'Brien playing that Choices with
Really?
Ricky Geroso. You know,
Wow.
because when I found out was that Romy gave me another call one day. He said, "Hey man, you know, I don't know if you know it, but a friend of mine, man, is thinking about getting back into the music scene. I don't know if you remember this guy named O'Brien." And at the time, man, okay, I grew up in the Bay Area during the 80s.
Yep.
That was heyday time for music, for funk. I was an O'Brien fanatic.
Okay.
I mean, his bass synthesizer work was some of the nastiest.
Nasty.
And his vocal techniques, and you know, he was working with Don Cornelius, and who didn't wake up Saturday morning to that theme song? You
Yeah,
know?
right.
So when Romy said that he was a friend of his and he was thinking about, I didn't know that Romy was one of his original guitar players and
Wow.
actually played on the Soul Train theme. That I didn't know.
You didn't know, and you had been playing with Romy.
Yeah, a couple
Wow.
of times. So Romy called me up, and I was like, "Oh yeah." So we started. OB was living in North Carolina at the time, and we were rehearsing out in the Bay Area in Pinole. And he came out, and we started rehearsing there, and then things kind of like slowed down. And the Gerosos moved out here to North Hollywood. They don't live too far from here, and they live off in Burbank right now.
Okay.
So we started doing rehearsals down here. Now I was still living in the Bay Area. So every weekend, January of 2011, for every weekend for 3 months, I was renting a car and driving down here for rehearsals.
Wow.
I would pick up a rental car on Friday, drive down here, rehearse right down the street from where we're at right now at the Amp Recording Studios.
Yeah.
Rehearse Friday and Saturday, and then drive home Sunday. And I did that for 3 months, and then after a while, I was like, man,
You got to do it.
I got to go home.
Yeah.
You know, my mother moved out here, and I was like, oh my God, I got to go home. So I moved out here to LA.
Yeah.
That was this current project. But another thing happened to me at Choices is going to trip you out, man. The drummer that I mentioned to you, Carl Carter, he was playing with the band, Janine Grigsby's band.
Okay.
And they were performing at Choices one night. And Carl said, "Hey, man, you ought to come on down, man, and hang out with them. I'm playing with Janine's band down here at Choices." And I wasn't doing anything. So I stopped down there, not looking for anything more than to
Right.
play the bass,
Yes.
Pete.
Yes. Standing still, minding my own business, making my money.
Yeah. And so, well, I wasn't playing then. I was just actually checking it out. But
that's
the guy that was on bass
Mm-hmm.
was Rocky Johnson. And I actually sat in on one of the tunes. But the guitar player in that band was David Stallings. And David Stallings had been in Lenny Williams' band for 35 years. There isn't a Lenny Williams album
That he didn't play
David
on.
Stallings isn't on. Wow. And he just passed within the last 5 or 10 years. So rest in peace for David Stallings. But me and David became real good friends. I didn't know David from anybody or who he played with or what. I just met him that particular night.
Yeah.
We hooked up and we got together on a couple of different projects, man. And then maybe a couple of years later, he gave me a call, and Kevin Scott was playing bass with Lenny. And Kevin's a real good, oh man, he's a wonderful soul as well. His job was, he was having some issues and there was a couple of gigs that he couldn't make for the rest of the year. So I was like, and Dave was like, well, hey, I know this bass player that actually sings, that sings and plays keyboards and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, okay, I can do it, because what we did at Choices, and that was my purpose of going to Choices. Man, Choices was it was like a stepping stone for me. Mm-hmm. It gave me the ability to work on things like playing the bass and singing at the same time, which requires a certain respect, and playing the bass, playing the synthesizer at the same time, and that demands a certain
We're talking
respect
about
as well.
crossing disciplines here in a way that a lot of people don't really understand, that those are two different connections to the music.
Yeah.
And when you can make both connections at the same time, it's really special.
Those skills have to be honed.
They have to be honed, and they have to be honed in a live fire environment.
And Choices was that for me.
And that was that.
Not that other situation you were talking about, Pete.
It's one thing to do it in the woodshed. It's another thing to do it in the live environment.
And that's what I use Choices for. It just so happens that I got a chance to tour with two legends out of that one little spot in the place that used to be the state capital of California.
Yeah, you just never know, right? Where that next gig's going to come out.
Benicia, where is that?
Yeah.
Are you from California?
Hell,
Are
you
you
said
sure?
Benicia. You even know, you know?
Yeah. So the thing, though, that separated you, I think, speaking again from a generation that followed you, is that even as a young person, you're playing, you've had a voice on the instrument that sounded mature. I think that was, because I'm in the class of 87 from Hogan High, we had Earl Brown in our class. Earl Brown was bad.
Oh, yeah.
But he would say, you got to listen to Quinn, man. You got to listen to Quinn.
Yeah, Earl used to follow me around the campus, man.
Yeah. And that was really the thing. Earl had a lot of great chops.
Paisley.
And Paisley, too. Yeah. I mean,
boys.
Paisley, you know what? I learned so much from him, and he had a really mature musical voice.
Yes, he did.
He's the one who kind of pointed that out to me, because he would play things that weren't choppy, but that sounded so sweet.
Very tasty.
And that was, I think, whenever we'd talk about the bass with Earl, that was, I think, the difference that he would notice. He would say, I got these chops, man, but I'm just trying to figure out how to fit it all in like Charles does. He just has something to say that's not necessarily the loudest, not necessarily the most, but is of a particular consequence, musically speaking, with a purpose. Another thing I learned from Michael Colon.
It's funny because when you say that, I done crossed over to the 50-year line. So, a lot of things for me are in retrospect. Because you're always trying to develop something. We're listening to your past episodes. A lot of people said the same thing that I have felt my whole life, is how you're your biggest critic, but you don't even look at it like that.
Yeah.
So I'm getting into memes now where, they make a lot of sense socially and psychologically for different people. And you see things that say, like, if you're a perfectionist, you'll never be perfect.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
And that, so you're always your biggest critic. And like your interview with Derek, man, he was harping on that. And I was like, dude.
That's Derek Jones, man. And he's a perfectionist too.
And when you come into it with that mindset, it's crazy, man, because you can never, look where I'm at, man. I come here, I'm surrounded by bass amps. I'm here all the time.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience for me. It's a learning experience for me. And because I'm concerned about my sound now as a technician, things that I got from Mike Colon. I'm concerned about pickups, certain technical stuff. But then living out here in Los Angeles, man, and which is totally different from the Bay, is you got a lot of people who are technicians on their instruments. And it's scary because it shows you just how much far you have to go, how much more you have to learn.
To milk out of your...
Every day is a learning experience. You never know it all. The day you know it all is the day you die, because you're not supposed to know anymore.
The other angle on that, though, is the technicians are great and wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they long for your voice. When you can feel something and be evocative and move people, get those hips moving on that dance floor and Choices.
That's where the perfectionists come in, because you want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You want to be able to be that technician, be that engineer, and sound good. So you have to, study all those different aspects, which means you're constantly in it. I'm a sound engineer. I had a little sound engineering company when I got out of the military. So I had to go to sound engineering school to be an engineer. So
what you learned there, huh?
Yeah. So, you show up to the gig, not only you're the bass player, but you're the stage manager, because, you have to tell them, engineering stuff.
Yeah. Shit's got to be here.
And then you got to get up there and play the bass. And then turn your hand, and chop over with your right hand to the synthesizer and sing. So it's like, you're before the scenes, you're there. After the scenes, you're there. But that's just the aspect of music that I wanted to get into coming out of the military, man. I wanted to know, the first day I got out, I went back to school. All right. I went and obtained my music composition and theory degree from Solano. I didn't want to go to some university, man. I wanted to go study under Delbert Bump. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right.
He's right there in our front yard.
The master, man. So,
And you're probably the fourth person to reference Solano County education, and among those people are Johnny Cola and Sly Stone.
Man.
You know,
the second time I met James early was in the sound booth up at the college, man, with Walt McLogic.
Okay,
James was bringing him some free stuff, and that was the second time I met James. The first time I met him was at Felton Studio. He probably won't even remember this. Was over at Felton's place when Felton lived in Somerset Highlands.
Yeah,
Felstar.
That's where I met James too. That's where I met Felton.
Or at Felton's crib. We were doing a project. Man, I had to be in like maybe high school. No, maybe a little bit after high school. But I was working on a project at Felton's house, and James had stopped in real quick to do something. He was in there for a couple of minutes. That was the first time we had met. So we've only met like maybe 3 or 4 times. But it's funny because one of the bands, the major bands that I was playing with when I lived in the Bay Area, Matt Applin and the Midnight Band, we used to play. Remember the Wine Boat used to be at the waterfront marina? It was a paddle boat.
Man, I
Remember
forgot
that?
all about that.
We did a Motown review on that. Matt Applin.
No kidding.
Danny Thomas from Confunction was on keys, and we had quite a few people came through there.
John and Pete.
Hey everybody, if you like the Break It Down show,
I can dig it.
and of course you do.
of course you do, hit that subscribe button.
John and Pete.
It helps us out.
Hey, if you're going to like the show on Facebook or on Twitter, it helps us out if you share the show so people can learn about it. So liking it is great, sharing is even better.
Let's do some spy stuff.
Yeah, just
Let's
sneak
get
in
all
there.
our friends' phones and have them subscribe to the Break It Down show. Do it. Subscribe. Listen to the show. If you love the show, tell 5 of your friends. Or if you hate the show, tell 5 of your friends.
But that was one of my main gigs that I was doing in the Bay Area. James is playing bass in that band now.
Okay.
He's the guy that took my spot when I left and moved to LA. So he's playing with Matt, but he's also busy doing other projects.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of stuff.
Busy.
So a couple of times I went up there and played with Matt. The last couple of times I did gigs up in the Bay Area, Santa Rosa, the Pink Flamingo. I did that a couple of months
The
ago.
Pink Flamingo.
Yeah, you know, I stopped in to sub in for James. You know what I mean? So they came out to Bakersfield and did a concert, and we actually got a chance to actually talk and meet. And that was the first time that me and James.
That was the first sit down.
Yeah, exactly, man.
James
and that was
is
just a couple of
beautiful.
years ago.
He's a beautiful dude.
Yeah, but he's along those lines, man. He hung out with a lot of guys that I idolized, man. Kyrie and all those dudes, man, and Amos Carter and all those. Whew.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Now, see, now we're talking about, these are the guys that should be sitting here, superseding me, because these are the guys that, in my mind, need to be in this seat.
We do need to get Amos on this show.
Yeah.
You know what, man? I worked with Melvin. My cousin Daryl had a studio in Fairfield, Rhythm City, and I was the engineer there. And it was Daryl and Melvin and me. And man, I miss Melvin. He passed just about a year ago.
Yeah, man, that was a big loss too. Yeah, it was a very big loss. And but that was my experience with James, man. And for him to do your first show, I was like, wow.
He's the one who really made us start this show.
I bet.
Yeah,
that's like him.
He had me on. His mom has a radio show on Sunday nights that he does with her. He and Jacques and his mom do this show. It's his mom's show, but they spend time with their mom and they do the show. And they said, you should come on the show, man. We'd like to have you on the show. So I go on the show, and we had a great time and talked about all kinds of things, man. And then actually, I met James. We had a martial arts program in Vallejo. Myself and Jerry Bull had a martial arts program in Vallejo. And Jacques was in the class. And I didn't really put it together, but Jacques was in the class, and we had mostly teenagers in the class. And Jacques, being a grown-ass man, I would naturally spend time with him, work with him. He was a little less nimble than some of the younger guys, but we would have some pretty stimulating conversations. So I got to talking with him, and then he started bringing his brother James to the class. And James is a big, strong dude, so he was a lot of fun to work with. And he would, when I felt like getting blasted, I would say, all right, let's do this, you and me. And we'd have a lot of fun. And then one day I saw on the enrollment card that I was dealing with Jacques Early, and I had seen that 100 times. But then I went, wait a minute, Jacques, you and James are brothers, and you are Jacques Early. That makes you James Early. And he went, yeah. And I was like, man, I know who you are. And then we started putting it all together.
Yeah. Well, did you ever work with Woody Sims?
Woody Sims is still in Vallejo.
Right.
And I had
That's
never...
what I went to school with. He was in Hogan when I got there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's around. I see him. I saw him actually day before yesterday.
Yeah.
But I was just by his school because a friend of mine has the office next door to his school.
Now, his school is over off of Amador Street. Well, no, not Amador Street, but
It's on Carolina Street right off Sonoma Boulevard.
right across the street from the elementary school.
From Lincoln Elementary.
Exactly. Yeah. See, because I studied under Damon Gilbert, because I'm also into Kachi Kimba.
Oh, okay.
So I studied under Professor Tommy Gilbert.
Man, you know what? There are so many connections between Vallejo music and martial arts.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, Al studied too, didn't he?
Yeah, Al just broke bricks with his head, though.
Yeah, right. He was a beast.
Yeah.
Where is Al, man? I got to give a
Al
shout
is
out to
still
Al.
playing, man. He's still doing gigs with Caesar.
Okay.
Fortano, and
Still around.
still doing gigs. He do a flashback gig every now and then. I'll see a photo of him doing a gig with Herman, blowing the sax and stuff. And his son
The
AJ,
Herminator.
yeah, the Herminator, man. His son AJ plays the bass now, man. And AJ lives out in the Napa Valley, man. Al does a lot of winery gigs out there. So those low profile gigs that pay real good.
Yeah, right.
Those gigs that we all look for.
Where you go into those gigs because they pay real good. What
And I love
happens is
wine.
you walk in there and you hear this, and there's no better setting
Yeah.
than playing at a winery.
That view is awesome at times.
Always beautiful, even if you're playing in the caves
Yeah.
because it's cool down there.
Yeah.
You
Visa Tui.
you always run into the baddest cats in there because the gigs pay well.
Man, and the wine is good.
And the
Did
wine is
Did I say
good,
that?
right? You know what? And then you get to. I remember, man, I played a gig at Meadowwood,
Okay.
and actually, it was with Mike. It was a strutting gig.
Oh,
He was-
strutting. Now you're going back on me.
This is what happened. Mike became the singer of Strutting, and I played the drums.
All right.
So as we started doing these gigs, one of them happened at Meadowwood. And I remember I got to, of course, the drummer got to get to the gig first.
Yeah.
So I got to the gig
All that
first,
stuff,
and
dude.
I pulled in. And the first thing, I'm going to give our listeners a little trip here because this is fun. I pull into Meadowwood, and Meadowwood is secure, and it's tucked in the Napa Valley in a place that you would drive by
1,000
10,000
times.
times and
Exactly.
never know it was there. But you
Typical.
pull into this nondescript gate, and there's a dude standing there, and he asks you what I'm
your
here
business.
to play. Okay. So he says, here, you got to keep this on your dashboard, go
Mm-hmm.
up that road, and he gave me directions to the thing. So I start driving around, and the further I get into this place, the more enchanting it gets. There were tennis courts in this place. It's not uncommon to see tennis courts at a country club. But each tennis court, it wasn't like a block of tennis courts. It was individual tennis courts that were they carved a rectangle into the bushes in the mountain and stuck a tennis court there. And they were just, sporadically
Napa
placed.
Valley, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
opulent.
World renowned, man.
And then I
Some
remember
of my favorite gigs.
I turned one corner, Charles, man, and I'm not kidding. I looked over, and suddenly I was on the road on the side of the hill, and I looked down, and there was a manicured. It looked like a putting green, except it was the size of a football field, and there was about a dozen people down there in all white, in white hats, playing croquet. It was like
Part of the wedding party.
It was like I stepped into the Great Gatsby,
Wow.
man. It was ridiculous.
Man, some of the gigs that I've done up in Napa Valley are just. I mean, it was it was like a highlight of what of being a musician, man, playing out there in Rutherford and all these different places, and those gigs, like you said, with the small gate, but when you go through that gate, you're in a whole different country.
Yeah.
Love
that
those
you never
gigs,
knew was
man.
there.
Love those gigs, even to this very day. Matta called me. He'll say, "Hey, man, Q, you busy in a couple of months? I got a winery gig." He knows I'm there.
Yeah.
He knows.
Right.
He'll tell me like, James has some stuff that he's doing, blah blah blah, and he's going to be busy. I said, well, you don't need to rehearse because you know all the songs already, blah blah blah. We haven't changed the set list.
Yeah.
Please don't change the set list.
Don't change the set list.
And because his set list work, and we played the same set list that we did on the Wine Boat. It's a Motown review. It works. Why change?
Everybody
Motown?
can dance.
Duh.
Once you get that perfect set list,
Yeah.
you don't fuck with it.
Who does? I mean,
Yeah.
why mess with Motown? So he does a lot of his Motown stuff at those wineries, and they're very receptive and they pay good, and the wine tastes good.
And the wine is
have I
terrific.
said that?
Do you like that wine?
I love it. Just got a case from my club a couple days ago, my wine club.
Here's the best part of this story about Meadowwood. I get there, and I pull into where we're going to load in, and I start loading my stuff in, and I got to go through a room to get to the main room where the gig is. And the room that I'm going through is, it's set off to the back, and there's a round table on that room. So I asked one of the servers, I go, what's going on back here? I'm not interrupting anything back here. And she said, no, that's for you guys. That's where we're going to feed you.
Oh.
And I said, oh, okay. Because, they're not going to feed us in the dining room once everybody starts coming. They're going to let
Wedding
that
party.
whole thing happen while we're in the back enjoying our meal.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Charles, this table, every place setting at the table had 7 glasses. They were feeding the band a 7-course meal with pairings.
Oh, and you wonder why I play bass. Man, I love those gigs.
Yeah.
Love them.
That was a stellar gig.
Yeah, that was probably one of 8 million stories too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, man.
That weekend.
Definitely, man. That was definitely one of 8 million stories.
Yeah.
When I go back now to the Bay, man, I always stop up there because I've actually established a relationship with quite a few of the vintners out there.
You are a purveyor of fine living.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I worked hard, play hard.
Well, when we pulled up on you, we had left you. Man, I'm sorry we left you waiting for so long. But we left you waiting for a little while.
Nothing but time.
And you were enjoying a cigar.
Loved it, man.
Which I know you do at least once or twice a day.
Yeah, when I leave here, my cigar spot is about half a block. It's just on the other side of the 101 freeway, man. I'm going to stop in and say hello to the fellas. And it's a good social tool, especially out here in Los Angeles. Yeah. I've met quite a few people, like the owners of the Zen Lounge, which is one of the places that we could have did this interview at. It's Tisha Campbell.
Oh, wow.
And her husband, Dwayne, from Love and Basketball or something like that.
Right.
But that's their venue, and it's a cigar-friendly venue. They have live bands. And another thing I love about living in L.A., man, because when I say live bands in L.A., I'm talking about you can go walk in there and you'll see top-name artists that are just local and playing with local bands. Some of my favorite musicians, man, I met and became good friends with the bassist Seiko Bunch. I ran into Seiko. We hang out there. He was there for a good friend of ours, 35-year retirement ceremony that they had at the Zen. They have a lot of functions there, and you can go there on any given weekend night, man, and run into some sort of top-name act or a lesser-name act with top-name musicians in it.
That's the thing, is that, whether it's a top name act to get excited about or sometimes you just stumble upon the spot, you have to bring it down here.
Oh, man.
You have to bring it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's that feather ruffling that I needed, man, because it's like and when you work out and you get to that plateau,
right?
And you're like, it's just like, no matter what I do, man, I can't get my bench to that level, or I can't get my squat to that level. I'm gonna have to move on.
What do I have to change up?
Yeah, and I had to it was just like this natural progression. It was this thing that happened, and the way it happened led me here. Mm-hmm. And I just thank God for it, man. I really do, because I can't think of anything that I'd rather be doing right now. It was a long road though, because like I said, when I got out of high school, I went straight into the military.
Yeah.
And so I actually retired.
We were all wondering too.
Yeah, man.
Why did Quinn go in the military? What's he doing?
Yeah.
I thought he was going to go take
the
Bootsy's
Navy.
spot.
I mean,
there was a method to the madness.
Okay.
There was a definite method to the madness, man. Because look, what I did was right out of high school that summer. Couple of months later after high school, I went right into college, and that's when I first met Delbert Bump.
Okay.
Then I was at Solano for like 3 months, and I was like, and Delbert was killing me. He was the guy that showed me that I had a long way to go.
Yeah.
Because when you play, man, and you're just having fun, and and it sounds good, so I guess it must be good. But it was at that point, and it was that individual that showed me how far the music game went. But after about 3 months of that, I was like, man, wait a minute. I just got doing this for 12 years. Let me go do something. I got to get out of here. Right. So, I got a chance to get out, man. But my method was to get out there and to see the world. Mm-hmm. That's why I joined the Navy. I mean, io parlo mucho italiano. I speak quite a few languages. I lived in Italy for 3 years. I lived in Hawaii, for 10 years, and a lot of training and stuff like that.
Here's what we know about Charles Quinn. He will immerse himself into an environment and milk everything out of it.
Milk it to death.
So if you took off to go to Italy, I'm sure once you arrived, it took you about 4 minutes to put your bags down
and find where the nearest bass player was.
Figure out what Italy was going to offer you.
Yeah. And you didn't go spend time at the Burger King eating American food.
No.
In town.
Didn't
I'm
exist.
a military guy too. There's plenty of guys who are like, I'm going to be on the barracks, all night.
They got a KFC over there.
KFC.
Well, see, here's the deal. Where I was stationed at was isolated duty.
Ooh.
So, I mean, we used to walk on, there was no street lights, there was no crosswalks. All the roads were cobblestone. It's all 16th century.
Man.
I mean, where I lived, there was a 16th century castle that the sun used to sit behind. I used to sit on the patio and have a nice glass of Italian wine. But just to the right was the French island of Corsica. And all this from my balcony, from the patio, man. And I approached it. I looked at everything like I do pretty much anything in life is from a musical standpoint.
Yeah.
So looking, actually seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Pillars of Hercules and the Rock of Gibraltar. These things are images in my mind that I translate into colors, that I translate into music.
Right.
Just views from around the world. I want to see the world.
And you knew that out there was going to enrich your soul.
Yeah.
And allow you to translate
my concept, my perspective of
Yeah,
things.
right.
It gives you a world perspectives, because I had been around the world before I was 21, and that was 87.
Yeah,
I was like, where did you go?
Ever.
Yeah.
So
no wonder you sound like a grown ass man.
Man.
I mean, you pick.
Oh no! Oh no! I think that I sound reflective of the things that I've seen and done in life, and it's been quite a bit outside of music. I found that I had to well-round myself in order to understand who I was and to give my voice, my music, that voice that it needed.
This is that voice I was talking with you earlier. Like, okay, technician chops great, but unless you know 27 different kinds of love.
Yeah.
When you sing a love song, that doesn't say shit. I don't know what you mean. Are you happy in love, mad in love, or your heart broken?
Agape.
Exactly.
Where you at?
Right, exactly. Agape. Yeah, exactly. What kind of love is it? And then that speaks to how you translate that love within that song. Because you can take
And even if you're
change them.
not consciously translating, you bring a depth that allows you to communicate something that reaches people differently. And reaches a number of people differently. I would like just to take a moment and a beat on that and give our listeners a chance to rewind 90 seconds and listen to that one more time, because what you're saying there, I think, is the crux of why we wanted to talk with you and the uniqueness of your voice on the instrument. Because everybody, if you look up Charles Quinn, actually look up Form Factor. That's the gear that you endorse, and there will be a video of you that was recorded right here in this room. You'll also see a video of Marcus Miller recorded right here in this room. We could argue about which video's better.
Oh, Marcus got it. You got it, man. Okay. You paid the dues. I'm the student.
But the video is remarkable, and you're playing on that video you can watch 45 seconds of that video and have your eyeballs fly out of your head. It was sick, but it wasn't just for the sake of chops. There was substance that was happening there that was emotional, and man, that's what makes your playing special. I think that's why everybody says, "Oh, Charles Quinn."
Emotion in music. Oh, man, I think because we don't get it anymore, I think I try to hold on to it, and I to a fault to a certain point. Because people say I close my I close my eyes when I play, man. I go off into a whole different world. Where's he at? Where did he go? He's starting to drool. I got that from Delbert Baum. Delbert used to, man. Delbert would go, yeah, what's going on with that? Delbert would play, and he would lose consciousness and drool and everything, and he would tell you that.
Right.
And that's where I got it from. That's where that thought pattern came from. It's like, where do you go? Where do I go?
Get there.
I go to Rome. I go to Cuba, Guantanamo. I go to Guatemala. I'm going through the Panama Canal again for the third time. I go to different places. I go to, France, and I can go to these places in my mind and translate them from this hand to this hand or from this hand. It's just a matter of translation, but it's where you go, and I leave. And I learned about the outer body experience with Delbert Baum. I learned about the outer body experience, and it does exist. It does, and as a piano player, which a lot of people don't get, is I can transfer a lot of my piano, because I don't just play keys. I don't just play bass synthesizer. I play a lot of O'Brien bass synthesizer, and I didn't play any bass synth with Lenny, but I do a lot of synth with OB. And people look at me as a bass player that plays synthesizer or that plays bass synth.
Right.
But man, I can get down and play the bass with this hand, some chords, and switch up and solo with this one. I play keyboards.
Yeah.
You know, and so I translated a lot of my keyboard thoughts and colors into the bass, and I don't know. It just sounds to me as though I'm covering what needs to be covered, and nothing more than that.
But those choices matter. John and I have these conversations all the time where we're trying to determine and appreciate the difference between Neil Peart and John Bonham, because there's two different approaches, you know, and then like they're both 10s. You can't be any better than that, but there is a difference in how they get there, you know. And you're talking about, again, yes, you have technical chops and you can play your hands crossed on different keyboards and sing and all those things. Those things count. But you're not talking about reading shape notes. You're talking about colors and experience. You're talking about you talked about the Panama goddamn Canal,
The guts,
playing,
man. The guts.
right?
Yeah.
And
the vision.
being able to translate that,
the palette.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can go and learn how to potentially copy the notes that you play on that video, right? But there's no Panama Canal in my notes, you know. And that is what fascinates me about what you guys do at the elite level, what Derek does, because Derek has a lot of love when he plays it. You know, just the way he draws that bow or whatever. Man. You're like, man, I wasn't ready for that note to make me feel this way.
I just love his playing. Man.
Yeah, it's
awesome,
incredible.
dude.
I love learning about how you guys do that, though. It's fascinating. Jay Moore.
Each story is different.
Yeah, Jay Moore's a friend of ours. And he talks about time traveling, which is what you're doing, and then you're taking us with you. And I'm in at the Panama Canal, but I am no longer in my body either. If you're doing it right,
I'm on the journey.
Yeah, you're doing it right.
That is the key, man.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that I play with now, my local band that I play with, we do gigs up in the area where I live at. Our drummer, he's a deep cat too, man. He's a real deep dude. He's a master percussionist, so he's a percussionist, but he plays trap drums and he approaches the drums from a percussionist standpoint.
Yeah.
And that, as a bass player, has changed me just as I've been here, because now I have this concept of this guy. And he goes there, John.
Yeah.
Then he'll start playing hand stuff. He's a percussionist, man. But he's also Kashif's percussionist.
Wow.
He's also Gladys Knight's percussionist. So he plays percussion.
Right.
But in our little local group, he's our drummer. Our keyboard player, I was telling you earlier, man, he played with Rolls Royce, you know, earlier in the day. And he's a minister now, has his own church, but he still plays, man. We got this other young guy, our guitar player, Dave Pruitt. He's an old session player from Motown, 60s and 70s.
Wow.
Bill Withers, all those guys, man. And these guys that live local, and this is our local band. And so when we play at places local, we got this new keyboard player, this young guy, man. He just graduated from Berkeley. Young cat, sick on the boards. We all get together, man, and the same thing that we're talking about now, this having this palette to draw from, because as an artist, if you don't have a palette, you got this black and white.
Right.
But if you have this varied palette of different shades and levels of colors that you can choose from
and blend,
and then do this with it and paint. But choose your palette out of your left hand and paint with your right without even looking at the photo.
Right.
And then look back and say, "Oh, I did that."
Man, I created it.
It's like
not
two
just
monkeys.
an image, but a texture.
Yeah, it's some Picasso stuff, man. And that's where that whole concept comes from. Is drawing from that palette in your mind and just going and leaving. I told myself that I had to leave in order for me to grow musically,
spiritually.
Charles just did it again. He closed his eyes and he took off on
it.
You gotta go, man.
Feel it.
You gotta go. You gotta go. Music is not what I do; it's who I am.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in that. A lot of people don't even grasp that concept, but it's wonderful, man. It's wonderful, and all those cats you were talking about, man, James and Kyrie and all those guys, man. There's so many other different cats, man. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tony Dwayne.
Who's Tony Dwayne?
Man, Crestside. Okay.
Tony Dwayne.
Okay, Tony Crosley. His family moved to Vallejo in '52. And my family and his family have been knowing each other that long. Okay, but I didn't meet him until maybe about 10 years ago. He actually, after David Stallings passed, he was the guitar player in Lenny Williams' band. He came in to play guitar. Now, he's been knowing my family all his life, and he's just now meeting me. And so Tony is one of those guys, man, who grew up under the Confunction umbrella.
Yeah.
But he went on to work with Whitney Houston. We're talking about somebody from the Crest, from Vallejo.
Yeah.
And it went on to work with many other artists, man, many other artists. And he's one of those guys that I learned different conceptual approaches to the guitar and the bass, playing linear as opposed to, parallel. And that approach that's necessary, that mindset that's necessary to go from a linear to a parallel approach. Things that I never even thought about as a musician, man, and just meeting these different people. But he's one of those guys you got to get up in here too, man. The last project I did with Tony Dwayne was a gospel project. Another artist out of Vallejo, Mike Nelson, vocalist. Crestside, we recorded a gospel album about 5 years ago. Tony was on that project. Felton Pilot was on that project. Wayne Vaughn, who lives here in L.A., him and his wife is Wanda Vaughn, who's one of the lead vocalists for The Emotions. And Wayne was the keyboard player for the Brothers Johnson. and Wayne also wrote Let's Groove Tonight for Earth, Wind and Fire. He's also on this album. And man, so many other people just right there in this little Vallejo project, man. The producer, Von King, has been in Vallejo, South Vallejo for a very long time. He has a production company now. He's worked with Confunction long before, back in the Project Soul days when I first met those guys, Danny and those guys, man, and Cedric. All those guys, man. But Tony Dwayne, he was a big part of that movement. He's in Vallejo. He's in Vallejo as we speak.
We're coming for you, Tony.
Yeah, you got to. You have to, man. You have to, because his knowledge. I mean, he was one of those guys that pushed me to continue my education and, further my music composition and theory degree, because he got his at Sonoma State years ago.
Yeah.
He's been in the music game, but he approaches it. He's also an engineer too. So I saw my worth just watching him do engineering work on stage, and he's the guitar player.
Well, I think what you're talking about here is you get to a certain point with what you're doing where you must now understand the bigger picture the way that an engineer does, because you've pushed as far as you can, and you need to, like you said, break through that next plateau and expand.
And there's so much more.
Right.
There's so much more, man. When I went back and got my education, when I left Solano, I went to DVC, and I started working on they have a certification program for music industry studies, and part of that is music law.
Wow.
Okay, so now I'm at a junior college studying music law, but my instructor was Michael Axon. He an entertainment attorney for like the last 35, 40 years. Mm-hmm. He's also he teaches entertainment law at San Francisco State University.
I see.
So you're at the junior college getting this massive amount of info, but
you're talking about junior college classes, though, in a very special area, because like you said, Solano's got Delbert Bump. DVC, who's a DVC alum is Dave Brubeck. So I mean, we're having access around us
to greatness.
Yes, an education that is really a cut above.
But it's necessary, man.
Yeah,
it's very necessary, because even when I did the music industry study certification, man, you have to take classes like Pro Tools. You have to know what Logic is. We had part of my music engineering class was part of that certification program. The music law was a big part of it, but I mean, I got my legal guide to the musician legal guide in the car right now with me, which is the book that we use in the classroom, and it was the book that our instructor wrote himself, Michael Axon. So, and Mike became but there's so many different aspects.
He literally wrote the book.
Yeah, he wrote the class material, and he comes out with a book every other year, because the music industry change and the laws change and
very
the business change.
Lately.
Exactly. So his books change, and he teaches his classes out of his books. There's so many aspects of it, man. You play. Now you got the engineering side. Now you got to know the business side, especially if you're here in LA. Because if you don't know the business side, you might as well go home.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you that right now.
And it's not just a matter of, now that you're a player, you have to understand the business so you can take care of yourself. You have to understand the business so you can service your client properly.
Yeah.
Whether your client is an artist who has hired you to play, or a venue that is, where you're doing business, you have to understand the expectations that are put upon you as a player, and they're all different now, because so much is dependent on the live component where, machinery, I think, allowed the live component to be neglected for a little while. As music technology pushed forward, recording technology pushed forward.
Exactly.
Now we're at the point where recordings just don't make all that much money.
Right.
And now the experience, again,
What else can you do?
is dependent on, the artists are dependent on the experience. So you got the guys like Chance the Rapper. He didn't even sell his music. Right. He just gives it out and says, I'm coming to your town.
Yep.
When I get there,
business
let's
aspects.
do it.
Yeah.
That's a whole different model than was around before. And if you're involved in the furthering of a career of a client like that, you have to understand where he's coming from.
You got to get up under the covers, man. And one of the things that really had been engraved in my mind, because I'm a stickler. I have this thing where everybody, there's a lot of songwriters out there, but no one knows how to write. I mean, it's like a carpenter that doesn't know how to hang a door, and in construction, you hang a door, you don't put it up. As a songwriter, I can show you stuff that I've written. As a novelist of a book, you open the book, I wrote this. Well, here's the music that I've written.
Yeah.
I'm a writer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of songwriters out there that can't write. They don't know an A flat major 7 flat 5 chord to save their life.
Yeah.
But you're a songwriter. That I'm really crazy about that.
It's bold to be able to say that about this craft.
You're a creator.
The craft.
Definitely, you're a song creator.
Right.
But to write
you
music,
can't be a songwriter.
Yeah, a songwriter. Right. I mean, right? I mean, doesn't that make? Yeah. Isn't that logic's common path? Sure. Yeah, but there's a lot of songwriters out there. So I had to make sure that was another aspect that I had to, pick up. But that took time.
Yeah, that takes a lot of time.
That takes a lot of time.
We were on the way here listening to, what's the name of that band?
Got to get you. Wait, what are you talking about?
Oh, we'll talk about that later. We were talking about the band.
Fish Trap. Mingo Fish Trap.
Mingo Fish Trap.
Yeah.
And they had this arrangement, man, that was so sick that my comment about this arrangement was, you have to play that with the sheet music in front of you. When you're recording this, you don't half step this and go, no, I'm just going to groove with it, and then I'm going to do that. The change was, it was a complex change, and it was very syncopated, and it needed to be written down right in front of you.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around. Get this right. And you're right.
That's the attitude out here.
Yeah. Right.
That is the attitude out here.
And you could hear it. Like when you listen to that song, I had to turn it up, shut my eyes, hold my ear a little bit so I could sort.
He did. He looked off into the train tracks, and I was like, what happened to you, Pete?
And then the thing I
Come
heard,
back, you're driving.
You barely hear the bass player, but I'm like, he was yanking that bass. It was like, woo, woo. Yeah. Notes were going up and down, and I was trying to figure out where the fuck that was coming from. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot in there that required a different level of detail in that songwriting for sure. Yeah.
But those are some of the plateaus, man, that I had to cross.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I know I could play a guitar, I could play a piano. What else is there? And I'm playing catch up at this point. I'm 50. I've just started getting back in the game since I retired from the military. I could have did this in my 20s. I wouldn't have had the mental aptitude at my 20s that I do now, or the maturity that I do now, or the business aspect of it that I do now.
Blows my mind.
I could have did this years ago, man. But like a lot of guys that I play with, we have Michael Norfleet, who's also Brian's original keyboard player. Mm-hmm. Michael plays with everybody, but he's been doing this since he moved. Since he got out of school, went to school here, grew up in L.A., and stayed here in L.A. in the music scene. Man, he's playing with the Miracles, Switch, Tito Jackson. I mean, he just goes on and on.
Yeah,
I could have done the same thing, man, but I don't think I could have done it. I would have done it the same way. I need to grow first so I can come back with a game plan, man. And my game plan was to get into it from every possible angle. I go do business deals right now for us. I can go in there and negotiate business deals for a gig at because I know what the working bells and whistles are for that.
Right. The mechanism.
And then I can come in and play the bass and get that check, and then I can go down and break down the stage and get that check. But no, I just play the bass. I just use what I know up here. I just apply that to make our experience, what we do musically, man, tight.
Mm-hmm. And more enriched.
Professional, which is a big aspect of it. And I don't think I could. I don't think I would have had that professional aspect of it in my 19 and 20-year-old. Man, I was party central. Okay, so I joined the military, man, and that just, changed a lot of perspective for me.
That whole thing, that counts. The 20-year-old you or the guy the person that gets here earlier and works, they don't have that shade of Roman red or Caribbean blue that you need that you've got. And it's like going to a bar and talking to a girl and like some guy with an Australian accent shows up. You're just as good looking, but he talks
he has
right.
an accent.
Yeah, yeah. Like, well, I'm leaving.
He's pulling.
Yeah, exactly.
Meet him in the parking lot.
Well, you know what, man? This has exceeded my expectations for the depth of knowledge that you've conveyed with us.
It's just been a pleasure seeing you guys up, and I miss my Bay Area family, man.
But I'll tell you what,
I miss the Bay.
I knew we were going to come down here. We were going to talk about
come back. I bet you we get the same room. Look, come back.
Yeah, I guess, man. We have had you for an hour, and I want to respect the time of your day, but man, that really was even more than I could have expected.
Yeah. Man, the pleasure just having you guys here, man, and to even consider me. It's like,
oh, come on.
Yeah.
You guys don't have Tony Dwayne here yet?
You don't even know what you've done for me. You unlocking doors. You're playing the bass, but without a bass in your hand, but I can feel it. You're changing things. I love it.
Really. Seriously. So
just the whole experience has been great for me, gentlemen.
Thank you, man.
But we're going to do it again.
Yes, we are.
I'm not going to sing, though.
We're going to do it again.
Not this time.
No.
Okay, no. Ever.
But for our listeners, ladies and gentlemen, Charles Quinn.
It's been a pleasure. God bless.
Man.
You guys are the business, man. You got to be doing this for like now on.